for joining this Ask Me Anything session today. I am in the worldwide Microsoft team in One Commercial Partner, responsible for leading a team focused on enablement, which is training and skills development, but I also personally lead an effort called practice development, which is really a series of playbooks that we co-write with partners on how to really build out a practice. And even if you're an ISV partner, practice sometimes may be misconstrued for SIs, but really what that means is a business. So building out your business irrespective of partner type. On today, the topic is cloud migration and modernization. And this is a really big focus for our partner ecosystem as customers are really looking to migrate into the cloud and transform their businesses. We're looking for partners to really lead that journey on behalf of our business. And so with that, I'm really pleased to share with you, we've got a couple key resources that we provide for free, fully accessible to our partners. And I'm going to walk you through them today. So you'll see my slides here. As you can see, I'm kind of navigating on the left-hand side. This is a slide deck of 123 slides. I promise you, I will not go through 123 slides, but I'm sharing them because this is fully set resources that you will be able to access in case you want to see them in a PowerPoint version versus a full customized book format. Additionally, I will also demo for you the new what we call guided experience, which is a digital online page experience on our partner portal that has a number of resources focused on migration and modernization. So with that, we'll jump right into it, but I wanted to just give you a quick overview of is really the key resource for how we develop this content. If you're unfamiliar with the Playbook series, we co-write these with partners that have successfully built out a business on the specific topic area. We have 12 of these playbooks in market, and I will tell you that the amount of feedback from partners has been overwhelmingly positive around how it's transformed how they do their business. And we have over 1 million downloads in market, which is quite crazy to think about. I'm really proud of this work, but this one in particular, the migration took us a year to write. So we wrote it with engineering. And the reason we did so is that we wanted to really tell the story across migration and not just be a lift and shift. So it actually covers everything from how do you think about modernizing your applications to building out your operations to what are the tools that you need to be thinking about and how do you really assess where you get started in building out your migration business. What I will share with you is that oftentimes partners rush doing a customer migration, and it can go wrong unless you really are thoughtful about the process and strategy. So today I'm going to take you through more the beginning facets around the content, and we will provide you this resource along with the playbook and access to the online pages that we have. One thing that makes the content quite unique as well is we actually, and you'll see this on the table of contents outlined here, we break it up into traditionally 5 chapters. And in this case, what we did is, if you're familiar with the playbooks in the past, we broke this one up, but we treated this one a little differently because it's so focused on migration. And this is part 1 of a 3-part series. So we have an infrastructure playbook, we have the migration playbook, which is what you see here. And then we also have cloud operations. So once you've actually migrated a customer, how do you actually continue to run the operation side of the business, which is absolutely critical to having a successful practice in this space. One thing I'm going to call to your attention is this section around hire and train. So something that's quite unusual that we do is we actually write job descriptions for the people that we believe are critical around this part of the business. So you'll see, and I'll show you here momentarily, key resources that you should be considering about in your business. So with that, we're going to just jump right into it. So as I mentioned, the objectives of this playbook is not just, a full lift and shift. And it's not just only on Azure. We wanted to talk about cloud all up. I will say though that it does definitely has an Azure focus, given so much efforts around data center migration and modernization. One of the key things I often get asked is, how do I think about leveraging this resource? It's, 200 plus pages. It's a lot to digest. And I'm going to share with you examples of how other companies are using it today. So one of the companies that we use, it's a third-party auditing company that works across, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They've actually used this playbook as a manual to help train and skill their individuals on the topic of migration. They are also using it as a vehicle to consult customers through the migration process. And partners. So in this particular case, they do a partner-to-partner play. I would encourage you, if you're new to migration and you're thinking about it, first, I would say digest the content, read through at least the first section, really start to think about your strategy of how are you going to build this out. If you're already down the path and you're looking to just accelerate or find, the resources, then leverage it as a manual to do just that and share it with your team. I would encourage you also to give us feedback, because we write this with partners. We do surveys. You'll see lots of data included in here, so please take an effort to do that. So as I mentioned, migration is something that, honestly, just to step back, we at Microsoft have really just started. We're like one of the first big companies to actually migrate fully all of our data into the cloud and fully be a cloud-based company internally, before we actually took those capabilities and built them into Azure and extended them to partners. So we've gone through our own journey in that process. And I think people often forget how many of the learnings are involved in that. And we've actually built that into the process. So what I just want to share with you is just the kind of all up opportunity. So we're seeing, the amount of revenue across enterprise, but also SMB, be a significant opportunity for our partners as they start to think about how do they differentiate their business models, but also be able to help support their customers. More and more customers are wanting to move into the cloud. They want that agility. They want even hybrid cloud platforms. And the value with Microsoft is we can do that on our platform today. So we've got this hyper agility capability built in through platforms such as PaaS microservices, with over 95% of the new microservices deployed in containers. And so we'll talk about containers in this, but there's lots of flexibility with our platform today. We talk about digital transformation. I know that can be oftentimes an overly constructed terminology, but here, think about this as really, at the foundation of transforming any business, whether it's working directly with customers, whether it's in your own internal business model. At the end of the day, it really kind of sits along these 4 pillars. And migration, modernization drives so much efficiencies. From those that we've seen that are the most profitable in the business today are the ones that have actually focused heavily on actually automation in their own business, really doing migration internally before they've taken it directly to customers as an offering. It's what we've done at Microsoft. It's what I would encourage you, if you're on the early phases of this journey, to really think about how do you migrate and manage your applications and your data. Do that internally. Get really skilled at it before you take it to customers. So as I mentioned, just, in terms of just some value prop around it, there are cost savings around having the data in the cloud, as well as the ability to manage and add more value-added services to customers once that data is fully in the cloud, as well as the services opportunity on top of that. So you'll have more scalability, reliability, security is baked into these scenarios. So just some things to think about, as well as the ability to actually be able to leverage additional new technology that is emerging, such as IoT applications, as well as even AI and big data. So now that I've kind of talked about just the kind of the overview of it, just want to share with you some of the key aspects coming out of the playbook today. So what we're seeing around kind of like a centralized operation tooling migration side of the house is, IT is now really at the forefront of becoming an enabler to the business. The more and more this aspect of the conversation is getting really upfront in the top of mind of business decision makers, CEOs, even for that matter, even the CMO side of the house. But what's really important is that you think about all the aspects of your migration practice in terms of how do you think about anomaly detection? How do you think about the DevOps tools and processes and the skill sets of your services? How do you think about the SLAs that you have in place with your customers? What is going to be that support timeline? How do you think about decentralized operations and resources to modernizing that, to automation, to increase agility and optimization? These are all things that they're baked into that strategy that you need to be thinking about upfront in order to really meet, I think, the increasing demands of our customers today in the market. I talked about the migration opportunity already, but we're seeing that it's the migration, even just in the next year, is the public cloud is increasing significantly by 500 billion by 2020, according to some research outlined here. I mentioned, the modernization is the key driver to end of life, cost reduction, more and more private versus hybrid cloud. All of these aspects come together. So let's jumping into just the strategy piece. And I mentioned I'll share with you all of these slides that will go into much further detail. Kind of one of the cool things I like to start with is really 4 top things to do to get started. I'd say first, really understand what kind of value prop you're going to provide as a business around migration services. Be really diligent around what that means, because at the end of the day, you need to be clear about that expectation that you're going to provide to your customers and understanding which opportunities you are ready to support. I think the second piece of that is what is going to be your service offering. Managed services is a key revenue driver. Doing migration alone will not drive revenue significantly at the end of the day. Where you ultimately will have profitability is at those add-on services that you need to be thinking about as a core offering initially with your customers. Tied into that is pricing, and then taking advantage of incentive programs or offerings that we have at Microsoft to support you. So with that, there are kind of like at a very high level, there are 3 core steps that really are important to think about with migration. The first is assessment. I cannot reiterate the importance of assessment in evaluating a migration and modernization practice. Having an assessment process in place, whether you build your own, and that can be your own IP, or working with third-party companies that provide assessment tools, this is really, really important, because you're going to understand what is the current data estate of that customer, where are they currently at in their business, so that you can configure the right outcome, as well as really understand how long is it going to migrate that customer, and what are those phases along the way. And so you'll see the second phase then, once you've done the assessment, is moving into the migration, so that you can think about which rehosting applications, how are you going to really do that? What are the resources in your team to support it? Are you going to have it automated? All of those aspects. When is the customer going to be ready to do this? And then lastly is optimization. So what are the resources to govern, secure, monitor the cloud applications? Because this is a huge aspect that's often underlooked. And it also has huge opportunities for ways to drive add-on services through cost optimization. So one thing I like to also show is identifying what's going to be your target market. Doing a big enterprise migration can be very time consuming, but also, doing SMB can also have aspects focused on it. So what is kind of going to be your tailor market? Are you going after, industry? So specific areas such as retail, banking, manufacturing, even healthcare that are ripe for modernization. And or are you going to go after a target market that you have in your business today? So what you'll see on the right-hand side is kind of the top services that we're seeing being applied within migration and modernization around industry. So really, no surprise, professional services, I'd say manufacturing is one that continuously shows up. We are seeing that to be a very consistent trend around manufacturing, ripe for innovation across IoT scenarios, data, as well as AI, and no surprise, migration as well. So you'll see 56% there. Professional services continues always to be a high one. And then, going down the spectrum, this is based off of data that partners have shared with us. The second is define your service offering. So are you going to really focus on, infrastructure and management, application development, security, data platform? What are the core areas that you're going to focus on? You could focus on all the above, but splitting between IaaS and PaaS, clearly there are very differences that you need to make sure, as well as the resources to support that. But you'll see here today, like a big part of the revenue that we're seeing from partners in terms of opportunity is really coming from the cloud infra and management side of the house. By no means am I undermining the fact that cloud app development is also increasing pretty substantially as we're seeing today. So also, I want to share with you common technical scenarios that we're seeing with migration. As you'll see here, public cloud with Microsoft Azure, 70% out of a total full. You'll see here also opportunities around private cloud with Azure Stack, Hyper-V, VMware. This is data pulled out of 364 partners around the world. This is their kind of common technical scenarios that they personally are focusing on. This gives you just a sense of where partners are focusing on in the market today. And also I mentioned, Azure Stack hybrid cloud is really, really a key aspect of one of the opportunities that we have. I just wanted to provide you some resources around that in case you're interested in learning more. We've collated each of those here. And then really important around pricing. So we have a number of pricing tools. As many of you may have seen, we have a TCO tool that's available. There are also companies out there that do provide pricing in terms of what is going to be the total cost of the migration, and how do you think about optimizing? Like, do you snooze your servers and try to save some cost during the weekends? Like, all of those aspects need to be thought about. So pricing is a very important aspect to be thoughtful about. But as I mentioned, in terms of revenue, managed services is really where, and also building out your own intellectual property. Companies around the world are doing this today and are really building a very focused business model on this. So I'm just going to jump ahead really fast, going into some some steps that I would encourage you to think about. So migration leads and landing your first project. What we found at Microsoft is really get started with, a couple key scenarios before you really scale out and fully say that you're doing migration as an offering today. Get really good at it. Start with a couple customers. And so here are some activities from a marketing standpoint to be thinking about lead generation and what we're finding in terms of some of the top activities. Even look at some of your existing customer base. It's easier to start with an existing customer than to start with a net new. You've already have the relationship with them. But if you're just getting started, I would recommend, picking a trusted customer to build this out with, build the capabilities with your team before you scale out and create an offering. Hence my point around starting small. So here are some ideas, such as migrating a single instance of virtual machines to Azure. The amount of times I've heard companies say that they've struggled, but then they've tried to take too big of an attempt at this. So you'll see here some of the value benefits when convincing a customer to migrate to Azure. I think this is very helpful in terms of kind of some key points. Cost savings ones that usually comes up, but also think about increased availability, scaling, capabilities that aren't available on premise today, as well as your own internal or customer developer productivity, and then of course IT agility. Here's some additional examples of ways that you can overcome customer objections that come up. What we see very often to be important is thinking about proof of concept or even a pilot that you can implement, really taking the customer along the journey. More and more, the sales conversation is becoming even I'd say earlier in the technical journey, and the technical teams are actually getting more earlier into the sales process. So this world is really emerging fast as we think about cloud all up. So what I want to just quickly share with you is there's just some slides that you'll see. I'm going to just move through them quickly so you can see the amount of depth that we have included in here. So we've got tons of resources, and this is all in PowerPoint format. But I want to just jump really fast to resources to think about, because at the end of the day, what's so foundational is making sure that you have the technical expertise in your team to support this. So what I want to share with you are some resources around how to think about the key people that you need to have employed within your business, because oftentimes many companies overlook specific roles. So here, like by no means, no surprise, cloud architects, cloud infrastructure engineers, but even oftentimes senior software developers thinking about applications that need to be developed is really important. Technical specialists that can provide across, things like networking and storage and containers. You need people that have expertise within each of those areas so that especially as the projects become even larger, you've got people that you can call upon that, and project management. From one of the companies that I've worked with over the past many, many years, they've really, really learned the value of having a strong project management focus. And that sounds so basic, but the steps involved in migration, at least earlier on, can be quite onerous, and having somebody make sure that the ball is not dropped on your side, especially when migrating a customer, is important. Here are the key roles that a customer would be thinking about, like on their side, that you would be engaging with. So I wanted to just make sure I called that out. And then we actually write job descriptions for each of these roles that are found in the playbook. So if you don't have them today and you're looking to staff, we actually build these out along with soft skills certifications that we think are important in the industry, not just Microsoft, but in the industry to look for hiring. And also think about reskilling your talent, because moving from an on-premise skill set in traditional IT to cloud, there are different skill sets, but that does not mean that you can't reskill your your internal employees today to do that. So just some resources to think about. And then we go deeper more into the technical pieces of it. So I just want to quickly share with you. We go into actually deeper into migration assessment. What are the key tools that you should be thinking about, as well as third-party companies? So here are some third-party offerings. This is not everybody in the universe. I recognize that, because companies are building out IP today. I'll use Turbonomic, for example, an ISV who is expanding their ecosystem based off the IP that they've built. BitTitan has been in the market for a long time, focused, primarily at the beginning of the days on Office 365, but they've expanded into Azure, Cloudamize, all of these tools. But there's more and more out there in the market today, but here's some that you can think about in partnering with third-party companies. So like I said, I'll make sure to share this resource with you, but here's a quick glimpse at the playbook. So you'll see these are the partners that contributed to us. We co-wrote it with Objections, but I want to just share with you really fast the job descriptions that we actually write. So tons and tons of detail are included in here. Take a look at it because I think this could be very useful for you. What I'll lastly close with is just a few resources. So as I mentioned, we have a guided experience, which is really, think of it as an online experience page with key resources. I am not logged in as a partner, so you would not see this purple bar here. But what you would see here is here's access to the playbook, and we break it up across each of these 4 categories. What's the total opportunity? If you want to learn more about infrastructure as a business, how do you want to drive operations in your cloud, as well go to market? And then we have a number of resources, training, even sales training that's available on this guided experience. And as you start to access it, if you're a partner that's part of MPN today, you can also access specialists that will help you walk through this process further. So with that, I just want to open it up if there's any questions that anybody would like to ask.
It looks like there's a question in the chat.
Great. I am sharing my screen, so can you by chance read it to me?
Yeah, it says, what is the strategy for, what is the Microsoft strategy to migrate a 400 to Azure?
Sorry, what did you say, for 400 to Azure?
AS400 to Azure.
So that is a good question. I will have to follow up with you on that one because I don't have a good answer top of mind for that, but I will follow up with you and I'll take your name.
Okay, perfect. And it looks, the person wrote their name. It looks like they're from Accenture, and it's in the
Okay.
chat. And so I'll make sure I loop you into that mail.
Okay, great. I will take that. Thank you.
And I do not see any outstanding questions on the community post itself. Are any of the partners on the call interested in either coming off of mute and asking a question to Melissa, or adding your question into the chat?
Okay, so please share if there are some, I just stopped my screen, if there are some Azure PaaS components which are used to host mainframe components. Yes, so we have that all outlined here in the playbook. So I'll make sure to pull that up for you and send that over to you as well. And then I'll just follow up on the AS400 piece because I just want to make sure I understand that one. So I'll take that one in email as well. All right.
Perfect.
I
Thanks,
know we're
Melissa.
at time. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll provide you these resources as a follow-up to this call. And for those that are on the phone, I'll type in the resources directly into the IM window so you can access them now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.